I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're delighted to welcome back one of my favorite guests, author Robert Johns. He is out with a compelling new book. It is called The Fighters, a trilogy, tales of conflict and rediscovery. This narrative follows three unique protagonists as they navigate personal choices amid cultural pressures and conflicts. Through stories of anti-war protests, political corruption, and family legacy, the author brings to life the struggles and the transformative journeys that reveal deep insights about identity and resilience. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his terrific book. The links are below the interview. Robert, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. It's good to be back with you again.
This is a great book, three unique stories, three unique characters, all with commonalities, of course. Let's start out by looking at one of the first stories, Christmas 1968. Tell us about that story.
Christmas 1968, the main character is Janice Wagner, graduates from high school in 1962, follows a path typical of that time of studying in college to be a school teacher, eventually finds a husband, gets married. The conflict begins when she discovers her political beliefs are much different than her husband's, and as she learns more and more about the Vietnam War. And ultimately, she divorces, moves to University of Iowa for graduate school, and becomes active in protesting the war. So she's in conflict, with her country. It gets more complicated when she discovers her family support and love is being questioned in conservative Iowa farm family.
These were real, unique emotions and situations and conflicts that people experienced very, very strongly back in the 60s, as you write about. But even today, people have similar types of conflicts where their beliefs guide them in one area, and then they find that their interpersonal relationships are strained, correct?
Correct.
Let's talk a little bit about your next story, your next protagonist.
Yeah, the second story is The Fighters. It's the title of the story as well as the overarching title of the book. Pat Stevens is a public sector employee who's done quite well. He's competing for the top job in a county, the administrator, and discovers his competitor is smearing him, meeting with county commissioners behind his back, hurting his reputation, even putting his job at risk. And so it begins with a single conflict with one person, but it grows. He discovers more people are opposing him, and it also brings into question cultural issues of fighting, how it's valued in the American male culture, ultimately trying to go back to his fascination with high school fights to figure out how to, as you say, actually it affects his identity.
Absolutely. And this third story involves a young man named Dana. Tell us about his conflict.
Dana is the son of immigrants from Iran. He was born in the U.S. and has always been in conflict with his father, who is much more approving of his other son, who's an athlete. Dana's more of an artist and musician. It gets tested when his father's on his deathbed and asks Dana to join his brother to run the company that his father has created. He doesn't understand why this request is being made. He rethinks and has flashbacks of all these conflicts with his father. Becomes complicated when he discovers one of his father's business partners really wants him to accept this offer to the point of threatening physical violence if he doesn't. So it starts again single person, but ultimately moves into broader conflicts, and it tests his position in the Iranian American culture. He has chosen to be outside of it, but now he's being brought into it. So his family relationships becomes very complicated as he figures out what to do in this conflict.
Talk to us a little bit about the theme of personal choice and how it drives the narrative in each of the three stories.
They have to begin by assessing the immediate conflict and what choice do they have? Does Janice decide to divorce her husband? Does Pat how's he going to counter this smear campaign? Does Dana ignore this offer and go on with his life? Those are personal decisions, but they become complicated, as I was saying, when more people enter the conflict and they begin to feel these cultural forces that have expectations for what they do. So the ultimate personal choices are very difficult and again, affecting their identity and changing their identity.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Pat's journey. What impact does political corruption and sexual harassment have on Pat?
Well, Pat discovers this smear campaign is going on, and the more he looks into it, the more he discovers it's more than just a competitor wanting the job that he wants. It's part of a broader set of land development corruption. Board chair is acting suspiciously in opposing Pat. So it grows, and ultimately Pat's trying to figure out how much does he go to battle with this Eastman and how to counter these bigger forces.
And all three are basically fighters. They're either bucking the system, bucking their family, or bucking societal pressures, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And Pat actually remembers actual fights in high
Yeah.
school where he was ambivalent about his role. And it's not like fights we have today. These are fist fights, one-on-one,
Yeah.
often have an audience, and the winner has a great reputation as the best fighter at that school. He has friends who participated in that, and he's ambivalent, and that comes to play in how he deals with this rival, Jack Eastman.
Yeah. What do you hope readers gain about rediscovery and resilience by examining the characters' struggles?
Well, the first thing is I hope that readers enjoy the story. Uh, I think they're pretty good stories. I've got some good feedback on them, but that would be my number one goal. But readers also, depending on where they're coming from, if they're young or old, they could get educated here about some historical fiction topics that maybe they weren't aware of, or they become educated about the struggles of an immigrant family. So creating more understanding while still enjoying a good story is my hope.
Absolutely, it has to be both. It has to have the icing on the cake to get you to buy the cake and taste the cake. And then the cake itself is where the deeper meaning is found, of course. So I think you've absolutely succeeded. Have you envisioned this as a film, perhaps? I could see this trilogy of characters being interwoven into a screenplay.
Yes, I could see that with any one of the three stories or an overarching approach.
Mm.
There is a model of one of my favorite writers, the late Jim Harrison,
Mhm.
who published a book of three short novels like this, and one was titled Legends of the Fall. So you're certainly aware of that,
Yeah.
turned into a Brad Pitt movie. So I would be honored to have any one of these stories considered for a film.
Absolutely. Any one of them or all three, like I said, I think it'd be an interesting juxtaposition of different characters intertwined into a single film. That's how I envision it. But there's many ways to have it unfold, of course. You're becoming quite a prolific writer. Are you working on, I know this book is just recently completed, but are you working on anything new right now?
I am. And I'm continuing the Iowa farm theme, and it's two characters. One main character is a Iowa farmer who was born in the 1890s, going through struggles to succeed in farming. The other main character is his grandson, who in the late 1990s is a professor wanting to gain a prestigious government position. So I still have a ways to go to figure out how it's all going to come together, but it generally is about how to succeed in the American culture. What are the costs of the drive to success that our culture, particularly with men, imposes on all of us? How do we go about dealing with failure? What's ultimately valuable in life? Those kind of questions as these two characters go back and forth, alternating chapters. And a theme is how's your family tree affect you as well when you're struggling to get through life and succeed.
It sounds like it has the makings of a great story. How does your professional background inform your work as a writer?
Well, I borrow from experiences. For example, Pat Stevens working in the public sector, I didn't work for local government, but I worked for state government. So I sort of know that world. I certainly know the world of protesting the war in the late 60s because I was active in that. My wife's ancestors immigrated from the Middle East, so I've had decades of knowing and her extended family, hearing their stories. So I try to draw on these things, but ultimately it's my imagination. All my stories are fictional. None of those characters are based on a real person. So I really enjoy that creative process. It took me a while. I didn't start writing really till I was almost 70, and but it's turned into my primary activity during retirement from my previous career.
You're an amazing looking man as well. It's hard to believe you're over 70. So that's a great accomplishment as well. Your insights and your work, I think, are keeping you young because it shows on your face. And
Well,
this
thank
book,
you.
oh, you're very welcome. This book is a terrific book, folks. It's called The Fighters, a trilogy, tales of conflict and rediscovery. It follows three protagonists, Janice, Pat, and Dana, as they navigate personal choices amid cultural pressures and conflicts. These stories involve protests of anti-war, political corruption, and family legacy as well. Great stories intertwined. Each one is entertaining. You tell me which is your favorite, and I'll tell you. Robert, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
I'm honored. Thank you.
The honor is all mine. I appreciate your time. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.